Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 16 secular choral works I couldn't live without. Now, we already have done our 16 sacred choral works that we all couldn't live without, and I have to confess, the line between them can be quite blurry. I don't believe a choral work is sacred just because it mentions God. People mention God all the time without any sacred intent whatsoever. And that's true of a lot of choral music. I mean, Handel's oratorios, even the ones based on biblical texts, are not sacred. The only exception might be Messiah. That one I can accept. But even that, remember, was intended for performance in a theater with, mixed singers and all kinds of unsacred things. I tend to restrict my view of sacred music to actual liturgical music, works composed for specific services or rites, and everything else, which is done in concert and intended to be played in concert, is secular, even if it deals with a sacred subject. Does that make any sense? I don't know. I don't care. That's how I think about it. And, it at least gives us a way of categorizing these things, because even in the composer's minds, some of these things are rather blurry. And we're going to hit some blurry things in this category. And I also noticed when we did sacred choral music, some of you stepped over the secular line because you felt that anything that had religious sentiment had to be a sacred piece of sacred music. See, I disagree with that, but I don't think it's wrong. It's an opinion, and there's not a right or wrong about it. But most of these pieces are unabashedly secular. They're not religious in intent, in terms of actual specific worship act things. And that, for me, is what seals the deal. So anyway, here they are. 16 secular choral works I couldn't live without. Handel, l'Allegro, il Penseroso, ed il Moderato. This is a pastoral ode to words by John Milton. Now, everybody thinks that because the words are by John Milton, the music has to be extraordinary. Well, that's not necessarily true, and I don't actually like the words particularly, but the words don't matter. It's the music that matters. And so, this is an amazing piece. It does everything Handel can do, and it's not overly long. Well, it's an hour and 45 minutes, something like that, in 3 parts. The title is not in English, it's in Italian, so that doesn't really help us, does it? I mean, it's one reason the piece maybe isn't as popular as it should be, because it has some of Handel's greatest music. I mean, there are no weak bits in this piece whatsoever. It even has his carillon, his glockenspiel thing going in it, which is amazing. But it also, most importantly, in the 3rd part, Il Moderato, which some people have said is not really the most interesting thing, because what's the point in praising moderation? It's like, ugh. You want extremes. You want happy. You want sad. You want hysterical. You want, hilarious. But we don't want moderate. But it just so happens that Il Moderato has As Steals the Morn, possibly the most gorgeous duet ever written in the history of humanity, or at least at the Baroque period. And so I wouldn't want to leave it out. And that one is to words by Shakespeare. Ooh, Baby, which automatically elevates it in the minds of most English speakers to something that's just beyond all comprehension. So anyway, it's glorious. It just has so many fabulous numbers in it, and I adore it. I absolutely adore it. I can't get enough of it. It's tremendous. And so if you haven't heard it, give it a listen. You're going to love it. You're probably going to love it more than some of the more standard Handel choral things, like Israel and Egypt, or Messiah even. I think the music's better. Certainly more cohesive and full of variety and color, and it's just incredible. Okay, next, Walton, Belshazzar's Feast. Well, here's one of those on the cusp pieces. See, the Handel piece is unabashedly secular. I mean, that's why I picked it personally, or one of the reasons I picked it, because, I don't have to get into it with all those other ones. But Belshazzar's Feast is, it's a biblical story, right? Handel did an oratorio on Belshazzar. It all is the same thing. The writing on the wall, and all, it's from the Book of Daniel or wherever it comes from. And, it has a setting of, by the waters of Babylon, we wept and all of that stuff. And so yes, there is definitely a sacred element, but the music, oh, come on. It sounds like Star Wars. Or Star Wars sounds like Belshazzar's Feast. It's probably more accurate. But the bottom line is that the piece is just a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, secular extravaganza. Who are you kidding? So there you go. Belshazzar's Feast is just great. It's so much fun to listen to. Orff, Carmina Burana. We have to talk about Carmina Burana. Now it's actually a ballet. It's a choral ballet. It was meant to be staged theatrically and danced. It very seldom is. I actually saw it done that way at the New York City Opera as a double bill with Kurt Weill's The Seven Deadly Sins. And it worked remarkably well. It really did. It was lots of fun watching people hop around and jump around to the music. It's very rhythmic. It certainly has that danceable quality, but it's a choral work for the most part. And it's so much fun. Come on. Who doesn't like Carmina Burana? Who's a person you'd want to have anything to do with? Yes, it's lovely. Mahler, Symphony No. 8. Well, yeah, it's a symphony, but it's a choral work. It's sung throughout. The first part is actually a sacred thing. It's a setting of a prayer. And the second part is good as Faust. Well, when you mix those things together, you wind up with secular works. No one's going to argue that Mahler's Eighth is a sacred work. He said it was as close to an opera as he was ever going to get to write. So, it's definitely secular, and it's just endless fun. And I think when you put it in with other sacred choral works, it actually shows up better than when you put it in the group of just symphonies. I think, that there's these hybrid pieces. People tend to look askance at them. It's like, well, what is it? It's not this, it's not that. They get a little confused. It feels a little strange. So this is the category in which the piece fits best, and I think is most comfy. Next, Mendelssohn, Die erste Walpurgisnacht. Oh, this is terrific. If you don't know Die erste Walpurgisnacht, you just haven't lived. It's a story of Christians and pagans on, their whatever Walpurgisnacht thing is. It's one of this pagan celebration of something or other. And the pagans win. They scare away the Christians by being spooky and superstitious and all of that stuff. And the music is terrific. Oh my, it's very similar to the opening movement of the Scottish Symphony. It has a lot of that. It's Mendelssohn in his Hebridean mode, which was one of his most evocative and effective musical styles. And it's only like half an hour long. The text is by Goethe. What's not to love? It's like saying the text is by Shakespeare. If you're an English person, if it's by Goethe, and you're a German person, you just go, Goethe, it must be great. Not necessarily, but this is great. This is absolutely great. Schoenberg, Gurre-Lieder. How could you leave out Gurre-Lieder when you're talking about secular choral works? I don't even particularly like Gurre-Lieder, but I couldn't live without it just because of what it is. Because it's just like this gigantic, enormous extravaganza. And it's fun. Let's face it. The first part for me is a bit of a downer because it's just a bunch of love songs, one after the other. It's like a just gigantic decrescendo. It begins with Sunset. And there's, perks up when the harp glissando happens, and, when he's screaming about getting his horse, and Tova and whatever his name is, the king, and oh gosh, it's so silly. But then it all sort of perks up from there. And when the choruses come in and the ghostly hunt thing happens and the chains are rattling, and oh gosh, it gets more interesting as it goes. An extraordinary work. Absolutely extraordinary. It is. And whether you like it or not really doesn't matter, because it's a thing. It's iconic, and I accept that wholeheartedly. And there are moments when I hear it and I love it. I mean, I do. You just have to, you have to surrender to it. Let's put it that way. And if I'm in surrender mode, then it's definitely a piece I can't live without. Bohuslav Martinu, A Bouquet of Flowers. This is as good as unknown. This is a little cantata. It's a chamber cantata. Well, it's for chamber orchestra and small choir, based on a bunch of Czech folk poems, some of which are quite grotesque, about poisoning and death and killing and all that good stuff that these folk poems are about. The music is wonderful, absolutely fabulous, and delightfully unforgettable, and it's quick moving and passionate. And I mean, it's only been recorded a couple of times. There's an Handel recording in mono, which is actually quite good, or in not such great stereo. I don't remember which, but it's one of those things. But then there was a newer recording that came out, which is really first class on Superfon. And I think there's one other, actually. There may be 3 recordings. I don't know. It's not as well known as it deserves to be. And if you get a chance to listen to it, you can find the texts. I mean, hopefully it comes with them. Then you're going to really be very, very happy. I guarantee it. Rachmaninoff, The Bells, to Edgar Allan Poe. Possibly Rachmaninoff's orchestral large work type masterpiece. It's an incredible piece of music. Never has a poem and a composer been better suited to one another, because, I mean, the poem is all creepy, morbid strangeness, at least in the last 2 movements, the alarm bells and the funeral bells. Oh gosh, it just worked. And Rachmaninoff was such a bell guy. I mean, bell sounds are everywhere in his music. He was obsessed with bells. In his Suite for 2 pianos, the first one has that bell movement in it. I mean, it's all ideal. You could just tell that Rachmaninoff was really, really into it. And it's thrilling. It's absolutely wonderful. Finzi, Intimations of Immortality. When was the last time you heard that one? It's a major masterpiece of, mid-20th century English choral music. A beautiful, beautiful setting, a sensitive setting of the text. Finzi was a great songwriter, even if his favorite poet was Thomas Hardy. Ugh. But, he did him really well. Doesn't matter where the words come from. What matters is how the composer handles them. And boy, could he handle them. I don't know why this piece isn't more popular. I really don't. It's full of really good tunes and colorful settings, and the words are just beautiful, and it deserves some major attention. It really does, and it's been very well recorded a couple of times. So give that a shot. You won't be sorry, I guarantee it. Vaughan Williams, 5 Tudor portraits. This is the most secular of all of Vaughan Williams' secular works. These are sort of seamy, sometimes ribald examples of Tudor poetry, wonderfully set in Vaughan Williams' Sir John in Love, jolly, merry England kind of musical style. Again, it's a piece that's not very often performed, probably because the text was considered unacceptably racy when it was first premiered, alongside Britten's song cycle, Our Hunting Fathers. Can you believe that? That would have been quite the program. Apparently, everybody was appalled. But it's one of his most characteristic and, I think, powerful choral pieces, one where he really responded to the text and provided a setting that's incredibly colorful and appropriate to the words. Give it a listen. You'll be very, very glad you did. I guarantee that. Oh, Dvořák, of course. The Specter's Bride. The Specter's Bride is, this story. It's Leonora is the story. The story of the girl who's waiting for her soldier boyfriend to show up, and, she's lonely, and she sometimes, depending on how the story goes, she usually utters some sort of blasphemy, like, I'll die if he's not here, he can go to hell, or I won't go to church, or I don't know, she says something God doesn't like. So anyway, he does show up, and he's dead. He's a ghost, and he grabs her and throws her on his horse, and they go galloping off to his home, which is the graveyard. And usually she manages to escape by somehow delaying things until dawn comes, or praying to the Virgin Mary, as in this case. And it works. And, the spirits disperse, and, she doesn't get spectorated or expectorated, or whatever is going to happen to her. Dvořák's setting is really fun. It's just full of wonderful tunes. And it does have, Dvořák took these things very seriously from an emotional standpoint. The settings of the words are always very true and very passionate when they need to be. But he also had a certain sense of the grotesquerie, the humor, the grotesque humor in it. And this has that. When she's alone in the corpse house in the cemetery, and the Specter is like banging on the door to get in, and there's this song. It's a song. It's really fun. There's just, you just get this sense that he really gets the folkish, like I said, grotesquerie about it, the absurdity in some of it. It's wonderful. Anyway, it's a terrific piece, which deserves more attention. So many of these pieces do. Shostakovich, Symphony No. 13, Babi. Well, this is just one of the gut-wrenching masterpieces of all time. Settings of Yevtushenko poetry, incredibly beautiful. Mahler 8th is the obvious inspiration for it, is an all-choral symphony. But wow, what a powerful, impressive, hair-raising, just its work of flaming genius, and so moving, so touching in every possible way. It's I don't know, I just makes me sweat every time I hear it. Britten, the War Requiem. Now, that was first performed in a cathedral, let us not forget, but it's a hybrid, like the Mahler 8th, again, which really gave birth to a lot of hybrid type pieces. It's a mixture of war poetry, secular poetry, and a sacred text, that of the Requiem. So it's not a real Requiem. It's a theatrical experience, more or less, whether you play it in a cathedral or not. And I do have to confess, having seen it like half a dozen times, it sounds horrible in a cathedral. It doesn't work at all in a cathedral. You always have way too much reverberation. You never get the rhythms. You never get the crispness. The climaxes just get lost in the shuffle. They have no impact. It's nice to be able to take a boys' choir and stuff them up somewhere a million miles away. It's quite evocative. You do get atmosphere, but it doesn't work that way. And it's not a sacred work by any stretch of the imagination. Britten wrote some real sacred works that are quite lovely. But this is a concert extravaganza. It's like Gurre-Lieder. It's more like that. And it's a masterpiece, of course. Sibelius, The Origin of Fire. Oh, this is just terrific. I don't know why people don't. Well, nobody wants to sing in Finnish. I know why people don't do it. And it's only like 10 minutes long. That's the other thing that gets you. It's a setting of a, Kalevala myth, as usual. And it's brilliant, and it's evocative, and the text is unique. And it really, once you discover it, you're going to love it. But the problem is it's like only 10 minutes long. So it's a lot of work for just a few minutes of music. That's true of most of Sibelius's choral works. They all tend to be quite short. And so in order to perform them, you really need to put together a program of Sibelius choral pieces. Like if you did The Origin of Fire and The Captive Queen and another one of his patriotic settings, Oh Mama, My Homeland or whatever, one of those things, or the choral version of Finlandia even, which would be fine. You could actually assemble like a 25, 30-minute long program that would be really quite splendid. But The Origin of Fire is cool. Oh, it's really, really cool. Give it a shot. You won't be sorry. Well, this next one is quite popular. Prokofiev. Alexander Nevsky. Well, based on the film score, he turned it into a cantata for concert performance. Its secularity is not in question. The music is absolutely fabulous. The Battle on the Ice is one of the great scenic bits of film music mayhem that anybody ever came up with. It's fun to sing. I've sung it. I've played percussion in it. Oh, God, it's fun. I've sung it while I was playing percussion in it. Because nobody knows, if you're sitting there whacking the crap out of the tam-tam and the cymbals, and, as I'm sitting in the back just going, Peregrinus expectavi pedes meus in cymbalis perig. Nobody knew any better. And no matter how badly I sing it, it just adds to the commotion. So, gosh, that was fun. Oh, my God, it was fun. And last but not least, Haydn, The Seasons. Yes, The Seasons, Haydn's last oratorio, one of his, greatest and largest. It was his largest work. Really, actually, if you do it with all the instruments that he intended and the size that he intended, it's really the biggest choral work out there, like before Berlioz, that gets played. There are those French Revolutionary pieces by people like Gossec and whatnot that were, examples of revolutionary gigantism. But The Seasons is big. It's written for a big, big orchestra, piccolo, 2 flutes, double winds, 4 horns, 3 trumpets, 3 trombones, percussion. It's substantial. And it is like The Way We Started, which is why I put it at the end. It's really a pastoral ode. It describes nature throughout the seasons. Yes, there is a secular element because whenever something happens, God gets mentioned, either begging for help in the face of a thunderstorm or praised for, making things. But it's not a sacred work. Obviously, it wasn't written for some sort of religious occasion. It's a purely secular and theatrical work, and it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And so there you have it. 16 secular choral works that will knock your socks off. I am very interested in your list as well. And you can toss in all the Handel oratorios. If you're a Handel oratorio guy, I get it. It's okay. This is the place. I think this is the place, frankly. So it's up to you. I might do a separate oratorio list or something at some point, but the problem with doing a separate oratorio list is that 90% of it would be by Handel anyway. So you might as well stuff them in here if you feel so inclined. In any case, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for participating in this ongoing series. Remember, there is a playlist where we're gathering all of these things together. So if you've missed out on the earlier ones, have a look, see if there's something that you like, and feel free to chime in. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.